This is the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, presented by Hami Media and the Pro Wrestling Reflection, where we discuss the very best of the best in pro wrestling history.
And what you gonna do when Hulkamania and the largest arms in the world run wild on you?
The two soundest wrestlers in the World Wrestling Federation, maybe in the history of the World Wrestling Federation, are right here, right now. Mr. Perfect and the excellence of execution, the Hitman.
WrestleMania weekend isn't complete without the Heartbreak Kid, and he is on his way.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
You will rest in peace.
Get used to it in Ric Flair, who you're looking at, the man.
This show, walking disaster, pain and destruction is our middle name.
What is going on there, Reflection Knights? What is going on there to the Vitoites, the PWCites, the Haminites, Israelites, the Irites, the Lowlights, the hit highlights, the whatever lights, whatever it is that you are ite of, we are shouting you out. Magnificent 7, Elite 8, the Naughty 9, the Terrific 10, the Essential 11. You know who you are. We love you. We love all of you, but not in that type of way. We just love you because we are family. We are a bond. That's what the Pro Wrestling Reflection podcast here at the PWHustle Networks and PodBeam.com is all about. It's the family unity. We are from all walks of life here. You got independents, you got demos, you got repubs, you got communists, you got Buddhists, you got everybody here in the PWR sector. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. You know, we took a little break because some people needed to take a mental break. Some people needed to, recharge their batteries. And of course, I've always obliged because I am that kind of guy. I am the most giving man. I am the most magnanimous man. I am the most scholarly man. But most importantly, I'm the most glorious man in the IWC. I'm the most glorious man in this podcast punditry. I am the most glorious man on this planet Earth. It is your friend and mine, the Professor Chapa Cruz, welcoming you to the PWR podcast, and I am not here alone. No, Daddy-O, I'm never here alone, because if I would be here alone, it wouldn't be the Pro Wrestling Podcast. It would be the Professor's Perspective or the Retrospective, so I don't want to do that. I need a partner in crime to hit, bounce off of. I need a different opinion. I need somebody to give me another view from another spectrum. And this is the man right here, the conservative liberal, the liberal conservative, the man who came back from Miami, Florida. He's not white right now. He is Cuban. He is definitely Cuban right now. He is your friend and mine, the Iron Stomach One, Mr. Wonderful Tommy Wonder, a.k.a. the Tommy Wonder. Welcome back to Detroit Rock City. How was Florida? And you are Cuban right now.
I'm Puerto Rican, damn it. I've claimed it my whole life, Calavera. Puerto Rican is a white Mexican. That's what it is. It's a white Mexican. That's what I am. But I had a good time other than I land off the plane. I got my Michigan State hoodie on. Believe it or not, people talk to me about that hoodie both on the way down and the way back because that was my only source of warm clothing. So I had to wear it to come back to this shithole. And so I take it off. And you ever have a hoodie and it's got all the fuzz and shit from the inside of it?
Yeah, it looks like it's snowing.
So my custom-made Calavera shirt in the font of Poison is covered in lint, and I got no lint brush. I don't even know it. I'm walking through the airport. My buddy's like, dude, that shit's on your head, your neck, because you're sweating balls. I'm wearing jeans, just sweating, waiting for Uber. So I get it all off of me, and I had dreams of finding my dream girl, Stephanie. She's a Cuban girl I met last year who, I don't know if I told the story, but on the way to Lincoln Street, which if you've never been to Miami, maybe you've been to Vegas and you know about Fremont Street. Of course. Lincoln Street is basically the Fremont Street minus gambling in Miami. You come off A1A, you walk from A1A, which is Collins, all the way, you can take it all the way to the water where there's like docks and stuff for the boats. And but around buildings. It's not. You're not getting in the ocean there.
It's the ports. Yeah, it's the ports where all the boats.
It's not ports. It's like people dock their boats there, and then they pay people to drive them to land on one of the little bitty boats. Because you can't have it up on land because when the hurricanes come in, and your boat will not be there when you get back. So they anchor them in open water so that they don't hit shit when they're bouncing around in the waves. Anyhow,
Gotcha.
So I'm walking to there, and we were on 26th Avenue, and Lincoln would be between 16 and 17. So it's 10 blocks. We stop at a Walgreens, and I buy a 6-pack of Coke because I learned early, and any of you guys thinking about going to Miami, you'll learn from me, alcohol is not cheap at the bars and restaurants in Miami. So by this day, I learned to buy a 5th of Appleton Estates Jamaican rum, and I had it in the room, but I needed Coke to drink with it. So on our way to the Nike store, which is almost 5 miles there and back, I grabbed this 6-pack Coke. As we walk out of it, still heading towards Lincoln Street, I say to my buddy Chris, I go, "Hey, asshole, why didn't you tell me to buy this on the way back so I don't have to carry it everywhere that we go?" "I don't know." I go, and on top of it, I'm the asshole carrying a 6-pack of Coke, wearing a Mountain Dew t-shirt. I'm perpetrating. 5 minutes later, my dream girl, Stephanie, looks at me and goes, "Mountain Dew." And I go, "Hey." And she goes, "But you're carrying Coke." I go, "I promise you, I just said that to this guy 5 minutes ago. I'm an idiot." Every day from that day on, that was day 2, and I was there for 5 or 6 days. Every time I walked by that restaurant, what did I hear?
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew. So I promised her I'd eat there on the last night. I ate at her restaurant last night, most expensive pizza I ever had. It was good, and her name was Stephanie, and she was the second Stephanie I met because the girl that sold me my $200 Nikes at the Nike store was named Stephanie. She was a much taller Cuban, both hot as hell, and I thought, wow, my dream has always been to find a girl named Stephanie, and
you had 2.
Cuban. I had 2, and they're both beautiful Cubans. And I look them up on Facebook. I had no idea how common a name Stephanie was in Cuba. It's not spelled like Stephanie. It was like Steph N-Y or A-N-Y, not P-H-I-E, whatever. But nevertheless, they must have both been deported because neither one of them were there this year. I went to that Nike store twice looking for the other one. But the first one was my favorite. She was the short one.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard the wonderful chronicles of Tommy Wonder here on the PWR podcast. And what are you gonna say?
Send me a hot girl named Stephanie, preferably of Latin descent.
Any reflection night that is named Stephanie, please slide into the DMs of Mr. Wonderful, the Iron Stomach one, the Tommy Wonder. But anyway, neither here nor there. But let's get on with the show here. And TW, we are dedicating this particular episode because this was a suggested episode from our executive producer extraordinaire, Big Ray Hernandez. He slid into the professor's DMs and gave us the suggestion, said, "Prof, you know, you do all those spotlights. I love all the picks you've done, but you forgot one glaring tag team that you haven't done." And, you know, he gave us the list. I looked at it and I said, yeah, me and TW never talked about this team. We kind of like passing glance. We've talked about this team here and there. We've compared this team to other teams. We've ranked this team with other teams, but we've never given a full-on pro wrestling spotlight episode to this particular team. And it's just due, TW, for 2020 Deuce that we do a tag team spotlight with, you know, arguably one of the best WWE tag teams of all time, hands down. You know, JB will agree with the professor. Big Ray will agree with the professor. I think you will agree with the professor. They are at least top 5 greatest tag teams in WWE history. Mind you, I did not say of all time because, again, we could go in the game of that lineage there. I'm not talking about NWA. I'm not talking about AWA, World Class. I'm just focusing on WWE. This team, at least, they might not be number 1 in your hearts, Reflectionites, but at least the lowest they would be is number 3. And I'm just being nice. I'm just being fair. I'm being fair here. I think they're number
3 in WWE.
In WWE history, maybe.
with Rockers and Brainbusters locked down at 1 and 2. You got number 3 over the Road Warriors, over the Hart Foundation, over
again. Before before anything, let me at least name this team, and then we could start this debate right now. It is the team of, well, the core is always will be Axe and Smash, Bill Eadie and Barry Darsow, respectively, the tag team of Demolition and TW. The reason I say the lowest they could be is number 3 is you name at least one team that was better than them, then that's the Hart Foundation. You can at least attest, and right now, the New Day can probably have superseded all other WWE tag teams with the record that they have. That's why Demolition at the lowest might be number 3 in people's rankings right now. They are still number 2 in the longest reigning combined of days behind the New Day.
Do you know
tag
why?
Teams. Why is that?
They were the first team ever to be 3-time World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. And the first time they were faces, the second time were they heels? The first time they were heel, second time face, third time heel.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I want to say. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, I'm sure, but just watching Demolition, okay, you obviously have Bret Hart and Neidhart. Bret went on to be a fucking huge single star. Neidhart, not so much, toiled in other tag teams. But they were still Bret and Neidhart.
Right.
The Bulldogs, Davey Boy went on to become just the British Bulldog, but still Davey Boy, British Bulldog, Dynamite, and he just kind of faded away because of injuries. Shawn and Marty stayed Shawn and Marty. Shawn became arguably the greatest wrestler of all time, tied with Bret. And Marty, IC champ, tag champ. Demolition.
And fucking women all the time. But
Demolition fucked Whitney Houston, I think he said. Janet.
No, Mariah.
Mariah. That's why she got fat. She was depressed over it. But Demolition, at the very least, and I know people that would argue this, Travis's old ass would probably be one of them. Bill Eadie, Barry Darsow. Barry Darsow was Crusher Khrushchev. Bill Eadie was this mass superstar. He was also the super machine, the smallest of the machines.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Barry Darsow was also the Repo Man and the Blacktop Bully and something else. At the very least, this is the peak of both of those guys' careers. And Crush. Because Crush really didn't do shit after Demolition other than
Kona Crush.
Bomb. No, that's garbage. That's hot fucking 1993 garbage.
Okay, yeah. You mean Chronic. You mean Chronic that he...
Chronic is maybe... But it's not Demolition. It's... But I'm saying it's okay. He was over.
Right.
Same with Adam Bomb. Brian Clark, Brian Adams. They were the Chronic. But it's just amazing how many other personas both of these guys had. And like you said, it's not a very long run. They're not really talked about or decorated or anything like that because of the fucking heat with Vince and the concussion lawsuits and stuff like that.
It's funny you say that. The run is short in terms of wrestling. Well, you know what? I have to change that because a 4-year run from 87 to 91, in my humble opinion, for wrestling, that's like dog years. That's a long ass run. Number one. Number two. While it's a 4-year run, yes, and it's short in the timeline, you're right. But yet they've been together or they've been known even with the kayfabe commentaries or the WrestleCon for 35
years. It's still
35 years to this month that the team of Demolition, the creation of the Demolition is being celebrated. So this is a very special spotlight. We're celebrating the 35th anniversary of Demolition, TW. I'm sorry, go ahead. What was your thought?
No, I absolutely agree. And what I was going to say was I'm not as high on them as you and Ray and JB. I've come around on them from how low I was on them because there are people who would argue, I think we talked about this on the show, Powers of Pain Well, yeah, that was Vince signing someone because he couldn't get the Road Warriors. But they formed an NWA and feuded with the Road Warriors. So really, they signed an existing team. It wasn't the Road Warriors, and yeah, they were probably hoping people in New York who don't watch WCW or NWA were confused and thought it was them because it was so blatant. But they had already formed in NWA. Demolition was put together by Vince or whoever's idea it was, because he got sick of waiting for his own LOD and created his own LOD. Right. I mean, Doom, Demolition. There's no, it's blatant. But I would say much like the Rockers were clear-cut ripoffs of the Rock and Roll Express, I personally believe, and I always have, and it's almost unfair to the Rock and Roll Express because they didn't have to get better because they were so over. I think the Rockers are a better version than the Rock and Roll Express. I think they have better builds. They're prettier boys, if you want to call them pretty boys, but they did more shit. They did top rope fists. They just were better. They were better athletes, if for lack of a better term. And they stuck together, and they did it in CWA. They did it in AWA. They did it in WWF. Not very long in WWF because they're dummies, but you know, alcohol and drugs will fuck some good things up. But Demolition, I think today, especially because they got to work with the LOD, I don't think people view them as the copycat that they actually originally were. I think they
proved
that out
they proved the doubters wrong, that they as much as the inception.
They could have been Kane and I mean not Kane, but that's why Kane popped in my head. They could have been Diesel and Razor Ramon if they were formed to replace the Road Warriors leaving.
Right.
But because they were there first, now you set up the dream match of the Road Warriors versus Demolition, and that's actually why Demolition went back to being heel, so they could have that match and it wasn't all face.
We will talk about that later, but you are right. Demolition was created by Vince and probably Pat Patterson, all that stuff, because they couldn't get Road Warriors to sign from NWA to WWF, number one. But the funny thing is, well, first and foremost, the creation of the Demolition Reflection Nights happened in January of 1987. But TW, the original Demolition was not Bill Eadie and Barry Darsow. The original Demolition was Bill Eadie and a guy from the Moondogs, Rex Moondog, a.k.a. Randy Colley. They were the original Demolition, and they were managed not by Master Fuji Reflection Nights. They were managed by luscious Johnny Valiant, TW. So let's talk about, from that inception, TW, the way they looked. And we have to talk about let's talk about the look, because the look itself is right. It's Mad Max with the helmet that is coincides with Jason Voorhees. We could say that with Friday the 13th elements, but you're right. It's Mad Max. The look itself, wrestling-wise, has nothing to do with Road Warriors look. They didn't wear shoulder pads with spikes. They didn't wear, singlets or whatever. They wore, in the wrestling terms, Reflection Nights, if you remember this name, and I've said this once or twice on a previous episode, TW, Lord Humongous, which was worn by Sid Vicious famously. But if you remember that look of Lord Humongous, and you remember the look of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, is it Beyond Thunderdome or the first one? Well,
I think it's the second one. It's the first one's called Road Warrior. Second one's called Mad Max.
Okay, but that look in the Mad Max movies inspired Vince to create his own Demolition or his own Road Warriors, but then they named it Demolition. Now, TW, in that look per se, number one, that has nothing to do with the Road Warriors, so they're not carbon copies.
It's still leather and spikes, but yeah, it's toned down dramatically, and they're two big brawler.
No, but the reason but the reason I say that is because Road Warriors in a different scale, no matter what. We always use this argument, especially in the 80s, the mid 80s. Not everybody had cable television. Not everybody saw TBS and World Championship Wrestling, where you could see the Road Warriors. Or AWA. So you could say, I don't know who the Road Warriors are. So you could still create a character like the Road Warriors for your own territory, number one. Number two, for the look of Lord Humongous, that is definitely, I don't care what anybody says, you had to be a hardcore fan reading the aftermags to know who Lord Humongous was. So
Absolutely.
So basically, you're just saying, so basically for the WWF watcher on TV, they say, oh, you created a Mad Max character. You created the Mad Max wrestler for your own viewing pleasure. What say you, TW, about that sentiment?
It's ironic that neither one of us has said this yet, but the Road Warriors are based off Mad Max too. It's not like every ounce of it is Mad Max, and which I believe was cult classic. Beyond Thunderdome was when it was blowing up. But the first Road Warrior and Mad Max were not huge. Mad Max maybe, but Road Warrior just kind of came out of nowhere like Star Wars, cult kind of deal. But they're different enough that they could still bring in the powers of pain to try to hoodwink people who were familiar with the Road Warriors from the magazines. But like I said, nothing. That's it. The similarities end there. They do not wrestle the same. They do not talk the same. They were their own thing. And I, in 1987, was fully aware who the Road Warrior was because I have watched them on AWA, and I did see them on AWA at family functions. So when I saw Demolition, like I said, they were different enough that I wasn't like, who are these fake Road Warriors? Whereas had I not known who the Powers of Pain was from watching them in WCW, not the World Championship Wrestling.
I know what you're talking about.
But the show WCW, it was called World Championship Wrestling on Saturday night. Like we call Raw. So if I didn't know who they were, I absolutely, if the first time I saw the Powers of Pain was in the WWF, I would have 1,000% say, who the fuck are these guys trying to be the Road Warriors? There's no doubt in my mind. Whereas I never thought that about Demolition. So even though we all know in hindsight, the smart people, the smarks, if you will, all knew in 87, this was just like, well, fuck it. If you can't beat them, join them. Let's make our own. And they made their own. And like you said, arguably, I will not even compare them to Kofi. I say Kofi, Edge and Christian, Dudley's, Hardy's, those are all Attitude Era and on is different to me than, and whenever they change it to WWE from WWF, it's two different things. It's much the same as
I know what you're saying. Demolition's from Rockin' Wrestling Era, and then you're comparing the Attitude Era. So there's two different eras.
Not only that, but I'm talking. I mean the fact that they were WWF Tag Team Champions. These guys were WWE Tag Team Champions, and obviously somewhere in there, someone's both. I think Edge and Christian were WWF champions and then WWE champions. But what I'm saying is, it's more impressive that Demolition were 3-time tag team champions than it is that the New Day is 17-time tag team champions because the belts did not change hands.
It's a different era.
In that era than these do now, where you could literally win them on Sunday on a pay-per-view and then drop them the next night on Raw, and it happens way more than it doesn't.
Different era, different storyline, different philosophies. You're right,
value on titles. Yeah,
absolutely. So let me get back to the Randy Colley and Bill Eadie era, if you will. It only lasted for about 3 weeks, and the problem that it didn't last for 3 weeks, TW, is what you said. Randy Colley was so recognizable as Moondog Rex that Vince McMahon had to put the kibosh on Demolition. So, the funny thing is Demolition might not have been one of the greatest tag teams in WWF or E history if guess what? Something was going on in the Carolinas. And that was Barry Darsow, who was playing Crusher Khrushchev Reflectionites, and he had a contract dispute with Jim Crockett Productions. He felt he was getting undercut. He was getting underpaid in comparison to Ivan Koloff, in comparison to Nikita Koloff. And, of course, Barry Darsow was a victim of the Four Horsemen because they got paid, top dollar, TW. So, if Barry Darsow feels cheated with his payoffs, of course you're going to seek greener pastures, whether it's the AWA at that time, or he got lucky. He called Vince McMahon, or Bill E. saw, WCW television and said, you know what, let's use him. And the funny thing, TW, is the recognizable aspect is this is where you get lucky. Cable is not a premium. Again, you got to be a hardcore fan reading the magazines. But Crusher Khrushchev he looked like a Mongolian because of his hair. He was almost bald and had a little hair there. By the time he got to WWF TW in February 1987, he started letting his hair grow out, so he didn't shave, so to speak. There was one identifiable mark on Barry Darsow that he had to cover up.
The tattoo.
He had a tattoo on his right arm that was very noticeable in his matches as Crusher Khrushchev. So the funniest thing with his look, TW, is he wore an elbow pad, but it wasn't an elbow pad. He took his elbow pad and actually covered the tattoo because back then, I guess it was too expensive to get removed tattoos, TW. So, it was a very lucky thing that, he had contract disputes, TW. So what say you about, I didn't see enough of Demolition with Rex Moondog. I kind of went on YouTube and saw them together. I mean, could you compare the Randy Colley Demolition with the Barry Darsow Demolition, TW, or did you try to do that?
I never saw him, and I think I've seen maybe one match or footage, and I like the Moondogs, man. They were the Mulkeys of the WWF. They were the guys who you thought were going to beat your favorites, but they were job guys. You just didn't realize it, right? And so I feel bad for that guy. He's the Pete Best of Demolition, where if you don't know, Pete Best, I believe, is the drummer before Ringo and the Beatles, and he quit or got canned, and Ringo came in, and then they blew up to be the biggest band in the history of bands. And this dude's like, what the fuck? Because he quit already. There's a guitar player from Poison. That dude tapped out, and CeCe DeVille took his job, and then they went to the moon. And then Def Leppard had a guitar player who quit, and the guy that died, Steve Clark, took his place. Actually, it might be Phil Collin. But that guy never did anything else ever again, right? You know what I mean? Like,
well, he went back to the Moondog formula.
Right, but
it worked for him.
You could have basically given him whatever job you were going to give Barry Darsow and had him be that,
right.
Mask on him and call him the Repo Man. Like, think about it. How do the fans shit all over him? Huh?
Hold on. I can answer at least one part of that. He did the Rex Moondog thing again because that still was a successful thing that made him, still stayed in the business. But he did on the independent circuit wrestle under the banner Detroit Demolition. So I just wanted to get that fun fact out there. So go ahead, TW.
But what I'm saying is, how ironic is it that this dude gets healed on wearing paint in his gear? He's not wearing cutoff jeans and barefoot. He's got a different look, but there's still, because he had that damn poofy Jim Blossom nose, like he drank a lot, right? But his face stood out. But maybe you shave his head and paint his face, which always looks stupid. Because whenever I see those kayfabe commentators with Barry Darsow painting his face and he's got no hair, it looks dumb. Looks like he put on some kind of like a fucking do-rag before he painted it so it's a straight line. But anyways, how do they heal on this guy? And yet the Repo Man, no one's yelling, "Smash! That's Smash!" or "Crusher Khrushchev."
I'm sure they did in the 90s when the Repo Man and the Blacktop Bully gimmick started coming off, and those trolling fans. That's the best way to heckle Barry Darsow. To be foul here. But TW, let's talk about again with the look. As much as everything we say that for the smart fans, these were ripoffs of the Road Warriors. And I want to at least acknowledge one thing about the Demolition look. And you actually pointed it out a little bit, but let's just hammer down on it. Road Warrior Hawk and Road Warrior Animal had distinctive face paints. Road Warrior Animal had the spider in the center and kind of like, he kept it from his eyes to his nose and didn't cover everything. Road Warrior Hawk, his was the funny like the ninja star on one side and the Indian sign on the other side here. So he had they were very identifiable distinctive face paints, TW. So you can agree with that.
Yes.
Demolition, and this is the only thing I will ever nitpick about their careers of Barry Darsow and Bill Eadie. They had the worst paint jobs I've ever seen because they just literally looked like they just put their face in a paint can, dipped their heads in for a couple of minutes, and just see what was coming out.
I disagree. I think Axe looked that way, especially if he just did black and red. Like he just called it a day.
Wait, hold on. No. They covered their whole face. I would say Smash put effort into his paints.
That's what I mean.
Axe didn't.
I'm saying Smash. Did I say that wrong?
You said Axe.
Axe didn't do a good job. He only did black and red. It looked like he just fucking rubbed it on his face.
Right.
And looked like motherfucking Eddie Murphy when he was being buckwheat on the damn TV show. It just was lazy.
Yeah.
But Smash, his shit almost looked like the fractured mirror on Eddie Van Halen's guitar. He had red, yellow, white, black. I thought his took all day to do. And he was pretty consistent with his, whereas Axe, one day it was Argyle pattern. He'd have like red, silver, black, and then the next day it literally like he just rubbed black on the top and rubbed white on the bottom or red and just called it a day and slicked his hair back. He's the one I was always suspicious of just there for the check, not there for the gimmick, where Smash always came all. That's why I was disagreeing with you, because I don't think both of them.
No, you said Axe. That's why I said Smash put the effort in.
I was agreeing that Axe did that before I was about to say Smash.
Okay.
He looked like he took some time with a paintbrush on his. Go look at the Eddie Van Halen guitar. I mean, it's more all over the place, whereas it basically Smash looked like he at least tried to be consistent. Axe, 1 minute it's the AIDS blanket, the next minute it's the autism puzzle. It's like it's just shit all over. Like they just mushed it up together with no effort or care or pride. Whereas, and then Hawk had two. Hawk had like you said, the Chinese star and then the red triangle, which by the way, you'd have to be an idiot to not know that's Paul Stanley. It's just he did a round star instead of the actual star that Paul Stanley did. And then the red was for Paul Stanley's lipstick, but he didn't wear lipstick. Then he did the other one, which was a full mask that almost looked like the Ultimate Warriors, but he painted it around his mustache because remember he had the mustache and the it was more like
but they had marquee face paint that you always
he made it the same every time.
Right.
He made it the same every time, but he had those two different versions. And then with Animal
Axe
he
never
did
did
Spider-Man once where that spider was, and he did Batman a couple times where he had the bat in the middle instead of the spider, but always the same pattern.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out that Axe, I still hate his paint job. Smash, I can actually I can always give it a little bit of the, I give a pass because it was still, he was consistent every time he wrestled, but it was still, to me, they painted their whole face. So that was my only nitpicking of Demolition, but neither here nor there, TW. I just wanted to point that out. Again, with the look, being managed by Luscious Johnny V, TW, when you're managed by Luscious Johnny V, technically it's not the marquee manager. Because at the WWF at the time, the marquee managers, A is always Bobby the Brain Heenan in 87, B is Jimmy Hart, C is Mr. Fuji. By the time you get past those three, then you're in trouble. So luckily enough, in March of 1987 Reflection Nights, they booked an angle where Luscious Johnny V sold the contracts of Demolition to Master Fuji. And TW, let's talk about that. I looked at Johnny V and, he had the dream team. So technically he's the manager of champions because not too long ago, he had Brutus Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine as the dream team as tag team champions. So hindsight's 2020 TW and 2020 Deuce that being put together, Demolition being put together with Johnny Valiant, you would think that they would be on the precipice of tag team gold or at least being number one contenders to challenging the British Bulldogs or whatever the case may be. But again, Johnny V in 1987 just wasn't that dude in my humble opinion. So when they went to Master Fuji, TW, let's talk about that synergy of Axe, Smash, and Master Fuji being a former tag team champion himself with Mr. Saito. He has a pedigree with the tag team championship pedigree, if you will. And two, Master Fuji went full board with Demolition by doing something that, he joined the guys, painting his face. As little as it was, it was symbolic. I'm with you guys. Right. You ride with me, I ride with you. We're going to make some money. What's the ETW about that synergy between Master Fuji and Demolition?
I would say it gave new life to Fuji. Like, I think even when they were with Johnny V, I think Demolition was an instant success. And Johnny V being there, maybe somebody, because Johnny V at that point, I mean, first of all, Axe and Smash can both talk. And when they did, Johnny V didn't mesh, right? Johnny V sounded like an asshole that would hang out with Valentine and Beefcake. He didn't sound like a guy that would hang out with these two. And then when Demolition talked and Fuji just would say some shit like Confucius at the end and be like, ha, 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 ha. And he'd be done. And it worked perfect. And, you know, I don't know what the tie to Japan. Maybe their outfits make them look like the Japanime villains or whatever. But it just worked. And he worked with them. Like, he wore black like they wore. And Johnny V's wearing fucking peacocking clothes. So it was never a good fit with Johnny V. And I don't think he did anything else after that. Wasn't he done? Once he sold
he was done with the WWF. Yeah, he was done with the WWF in late '87. You know, he managed the New Dream Team, and then he just kind of, you know, the contract expired, and then he left.
Who was the New Dream Team? Bravo and Valentine?
Yeah, Bravo and Valentine. So for that, but I think it was the perfect meshing of Fuji, Axe, and Smash. So TW in '87, the first, let's say, marquee feud that was on Superstars of Wrestling and Wrestling Challenge was Demolition against Ken Patera and Billy Jack Haynes. And I love that one because it started off with, you know, when you do Superstars of Wrestling, they build a storyline that they beat the snot out of a jobber named Brady Boone. He has no affiliation with Billy Jack Haynes. They are not blood related. There's no 23andMe. There's no Ancestry.com that shows proof that Brady Boone and Billy Jack Haynes are related. But in wrestling lore, Brady Boone was the first cousin of Billy Jack Haynes. And of course, that was a way to introduce the world TW to Demolition because Billy Jack Haynes and Ken Patera are very well-known baby faces TW. So I didn't give you a match to see about that. I just wanted to show how they were, you know, implanted on Saturday morning television TW. The first, let's say, showcase of Demolition's power, strength, aggressiveness, and being taken as badasses, you know, monster heel badasses TW, was November of 1987, the first Survivor Series where the pay-per-view audience was introduced to Demolition as, you know, in that 20-man, you know, survival match, you know, again, when tag teams were premium, you had Demolition, Heart Foundation, you had Strikeforce on the other side, British Bulldogs on the other side, you had the Killer Bees on one side, you had the Dream Team, TW. Oh, it was a glorious year for that.
Conquistadors.
Well, we're not going to talk about 88.
Bolsheviks.
Bolsheviks. I'm talking about 87. This is where they were introduced to the world because in that match, they beat the snot out of the Heart Foundation. The British Bulldogs, the Killer Bees, and even Strikeforce as the WWF Tag Team Champions. They got disqualified. So then nobody on the good of the baby faces in the Survivor Series tag team match pinned them. It took themselves being so aggressive, TW. I think that was the best way to introduce the masses to Demolition. What say you, TW, about that assessment?
I didn't even know that's how they debuted. I'm sure I did back then.
No, it's not how they debuted. To me, it's how they were showcased and they were taken seriously by the wrestling world. What say you?
Yeah, it's a dusty finish. It's a way to let I would assume the baby faces went over. I don't remember. But it's a way for them to lose without losing. And just like over the years, Survivor Series would have guys like the Warrior and Rick Rude would get double disqualified or get counted out fighting to the back, and they're both eliminated. So that you protect both of them and carry the feud. So yeah, there's points to it. You know, like modern day. Ray had a problem with how Bobby Lashley beat Brock Lesnar. It's the absolute perfect way for Bobby. Bobby's the heel. Roman's the bigger heel. You protect Brock. You put the belt back on the Raw guy, and you set up Roman versus Brock that we didn't get because of COVID, and you do it on SmackDown, and Heyman and Roman have all the heat, and Bobby now has the belt, and whatever babyface faces him can say, you cheated to get that belt back. It's perfect. They could not have done it better. And the best part is if Brock would have won, people would have complained about that too. This guy put another guy over. And back then, you don't want Demolition getting beat. You don't want them killing all the baby faces either, because then who are they going to fight? So by having them do what they did, it made them scary. Now, every time when your favorite tag team, be it Strikeforce, Killer Bees, or Bulldogs, are going to, and I think the Rockers and the Young Stallions were the other two, right?
1987 was the Young Stallions. I forgot the other one. Oh, the Rougeaus, the Rougeau brothers.
Right. So whenever your favorite team gets in there with the Demolition, you're like, damn, they handled 3 at once. How are they going to, these guys are going to get killed. But you don't know because they didn't beat anybody because they got disqualified. It was perfect. It was perfect.
It was so perfect that because of 1987 Survivor Series performance, like I said, they were eliminated because of their own doing, because they beat up everybody and they beat up the referee. So that was perfect booking by Vince McMahon. You know, sometimes Vince McMahon does get it right in bookings Reflection Night, but I don't want to go here to there because I don't want to go on a diatribe there. But because of that, TW, and because of Saturday and Sunday where they can dominate against the jobbers, and we have to talk about their finishing maneuver, TW. You know, they won where Smash puts you in a backbreaker position. Axe comes off the second rope and hits the elbow onto your chest or to the throat. What say you about that finishing? What was it called? I don't remember what it's called. So we just call it the Demolition move. Let's just say
it was called the Device Doomsday.
Okay, Device Doomsday. Okay. Whatever. I take your word for it.
Say that backwards.
Device Doomsday.
Say it backwards.
Doomsday Device. I know that's LOD shit. So
come on. I don't even know what they call it. It's funny you say that.
But I'm just explaining the maneuver.
Here's a little FYI. I took that move from Manny Fernandez and Bo James, where Manny Fernandez held me over his knee and I thought they were going to kill me. And I wrestled Axe and Nitro, which was another Demolition guy on the Indies, and I didn't take that move from them. I took it from Manny Fernandez, but not from Axe. That's insane. But
so you felt that move. So what say you about that move itself?
Light as a feather. I would choose that move over the Doomsday Device 7 out of 7 days of the week. The Doomsday Device, when done right, which is when Road Warrior Hawk doesn't knock you out with his clothesline and you can take your own bump, you're fine.
Animal doesn't flip you over.
Animal throws the legs up, and so dudes are just landing on their fucking necks and heads. I can't believe more guys did die taking that move. And I actually wrestled Bobo Brazil Jr., who's not Bobo Brazil, and he's just like Brady Boone, not blood-related to Bobo. He was actually Calypso Jim on Big Time Wrestling over in Canada and Quebec. I wrestled him and Andy Fish, and we had heat, and they wanted me to take that Doomsday Device. And I'm like, absolutely not. And the funny thing is, I remember them picking me up for it, but I don't remember if I took it or if Rico saved me and then Rico took it. I can't remember because I was like, absolutely not taking that move because we had heat. Like, they could hurt me on purpose, and there's nothing I can do about it. But I think I did take the bump, and I think Calypso Jim took care of me. He bumped with me. And you know what that move is called?
What?
Like, if Hawk doesn't do the clothesline, and Animal has you up on his shoulders like that and just takes a back bump, it's called the electric chair. We used to do it all the time.
He did that too. He did that too.
So when he bumps with you, you're taken care of because he's holding your legs so you can just take a back bump with him. When he did this shit, it's over. Say a prayer.
Right.
Say a prayer. If you land right, that's God's will. That's because, dude, and the only guys worse were the Nasty Boys. And I don't even remember what their finishing move was because they were just assholes who hurt people, like, all the time.
The stink arm, but let's go. But TW, let's go back to this maneuver with the Demolition. Technically,
light as a feather.
You said light as a feather, but visually, did it look devastating to you in your humble opinion?
Yeah, it looked brutal, absolutely.
Okay.
And the reason I know it's not is because I thought Manny Fernandez and Bo James, I thought were about to break me in half because we had heat. So I thought, and I mean, he's holding me up by basketball shorts and a basketball shirt because I'm sandbagging him because I'm so mad that I'm like, I'm not making this easy for you. And I mean, he like, if you can see me, but obviously wider, he's struggling to hold me on his knee. And then Bo James is fucking fatter and comes off that second elbow. And I just prayed. I literally prayed. I'm like, God, please let me survive this because I thought for sure they were killing me. And for whatever reason, they didn't, and it was the finish. He pinned me. But I just remember landing going,
TW,
wow.
let me ask you this question while you was praying to God with the way Manny Fernandez was positioning you. Your fear was if he held you tight on his knees and the elbow came, were you afraid of your back, like a spine?
Breaking my back, yeah.
Okay, all right, I just want to, so technically
my lower back was like, because my ass was on one side of his knee, my chest was on the other side of his knee. So the smaller your back was right on his knee. So if he lands on me on the knee, not up, and Manny doesn't flip me over, dude, I'm done. It's lower back snapped,
So technically, the move visually could look devastating.
Absolutely.
But it's not really devastating unless someone has heat with you.
If someone stiffs you.
It stiffs the hell out of you. Okay, so we get that sentiment. To me, as a kid, it didn't look that devastating in comparison to the Doomsday Device with LOD.
But there's a reason why. It's a very simple reason why.
Why?
First of all, you're already hovering above the ground, and second of all, he's jumping off the second rope. Animal is standing up, and you're touching the rafters when Hawk clotheslines you.
Right.
And to this day, there's not a finishing maneuver that looks more brutal than the Doomsday Device.
Of course,
there's not. There might be one that someone did once.
3D is still a devastating.
I broke my hand doing it 3D. Broke my damn hand because the guy I did it to, his knee landed on my hand in the air, and as we went down, it broke my hand. Right, as soon as it landed, his knee was on my fucking hand. Hurt me all for months.
Wow.
But it's not near. Dude, no. 3D is a piece of cake. It's a piece of cake bump to take. That Doomsday Device, it's out of your hands. If the guy doing it wants to hurt you, you're getting hurt.
Right. But
the only move that's worse is the kill shot engage, whatever Christian does.
Okay.
But there was a guy like Juventud or somebody did it on Nitro with your legs on his fucking shoulders. Where you're almost like he was pile driving you, but you're behind him instead of in front.
Gotcha.
You know what move I'm talking about?
Homicide did that too. I remember.
Homicide did it.
Yeah.
Homicide did it. And these two dudes in Detroit wanted to do it to me, and I go, "Where's my head?" Right by my ass. And I'm like, "And where's your head?" He goes, "Right here." I go, "Facing that way?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "No, I'm not taking that move." He's like, "Why not?" I go, "Because I've already broken my neck once. I'm not doing it again." And the motherfucker tried doing it to me anyway. I go, get the fuck up. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And then they tried to get Rico to take it. Neither one of us would take it. I'm like, "You're gonna kill somebody with that."
But we'll do a spotlight on dangerous moves. But I just wanted to put that move out there that what Demolition did visually to me did not look as devastating. But thanks to TW and his wrestling experience, you see, Reflectionites, how dangerous that simplistic move that Axe and Smash did can actually break your fucking back. But anyway, TW, while they're building up their wins and they're building up the wins on Wrestling Challenge and Superstars of Wrestling, of course, Vince McMahon sees that the crowd is behind Demolition. Their look, their aura is scary as hell. And of course, they get their chance at WrestleMania 4 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, Trump Plaza, to become tag team champions. And that's the first match I wanted to highlight for you, as they face Tito Santana and Rick Martel Strikeforce. TW, we could look at this match in terms of babyface and heel. And the one thing where, the funny thing is I always said, at least in the 80s, and this was the problem with teams like Demolition and Road Warriors when they're heels. Is it believable that these, white beat baby faces or tiger beat, team stud baby faces like Strikeforce, like Rock and Roll Express and teams like that, could they actually beat up the Road Warriors? Can it be believable that you can beat up the Road Warriors or Demolition as heels? This was a short match. This did not last more than like 10 minutes. And Demolition won with a little chicanery thanks to Master Fuji's cane. But TW, what say you about that psychology? How to make it believable for a babyface to even get their comeuppance against a devastating, bruising tag team, but technically sound like Demolition?
This is where we're going to disagree.
Okay.
This is the first match we watched.
Yes.
And every match after it, they wrestled the exact same way, but it's a good thing because, like I said, Animal's throwing drop kicks, Road Warriors throwing power slams, all that. Every match that you had me watch, and I even watched another one with the Rockers, every match started out the same way. They just beat the shit out of somebody until they were on the ground doing the Steve Austin stomp in the corner in the middle of the ring. That's how everyone started. And then they would let guys get some heat on them or whatever, but not much. Specifically, the match you had me watch last, of all people, my man, one of my heroes fought for his shit. And he was like, fuck you, and started throwing shoot punches on him. We'll talk about that later. But this particular match, the one thing I noticed immediately is the crowd cheered them beating the shit out of Rick Martel. Cheered him.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I'm like, is that Rick or Tito in there? And funny is, the fuzzier the TV, the footage, I couldn't tell them apart, which makes it, in hindsight, a perfect babyface tag team. It's like Powers and Roma had the same body, but one had long hair, one had short hair. You always knew which guy was in there, right? Sean and Marty, different color hair. Tito and Martel, even though Martel's a little bit shorter, when they both had that big-ass 80s hair, I literally was like, I think it's Martel, but I can't tell.
The metal band hair.
At the end, when Martel goes for the Boston Crab, they pop for that. Like, they're cheering because he's got the Boston Crab, which leads to the finish, which I watched a shoot interview after this where I thought that cane broke. First of all, Smash thought it was Martel, or, it was Martel that got hit with the cane. Yeah. He thought it was Tito, I think, that got hit with the cane. Well, maybe he did say Martel in hindsight. But anyway, he was trying to break the cane, and the cane didn't break. And he said that Fuji, he still thinks to this day, Fuji did a rib by soaking it in water the night before to make it feel like it was softer. But it was still green. He goes, some of them older canes, you'd hit a guy, they'd snap easy. And he said, I think I could have wrapped that thing completely around him and it still wouldn't have broke because it was green wood. But he put it in the water to make it look older so that they'd be like, all right, you can hit me with that. And he absolutely is. He said in the shoot interview, he goes, I think he was halfway out cold when I hit him with that because he didn't know it wasn't going to break.
He got concussed. Concussed.
And he was gone not long after that. He was out for like 8 months, Rick Martel.
Well, that and also he had some family issues, so that was a great way of storyline,
right?
Get him out there. So I just wanted to point out that, TW, before we talk about other matches and glorifying the tag team championship career of Demolition, because now we're getting into the meat and the crust of our spotlight. Again, TW, we could talk about Road Warriors and we could talk about Demolition, but like you said, Axe and Smash, they do the jackhammer move. They do the double axe handles onto the back and all that stuff. That's their trademark. That's their trademark wrestling maneuver. So that shows how powerful, how devastating it is. But again, let me ask you this. In hindsight, maybe let's do the 2020 Deuce eyes. Is it believable for a team like Strikeforce? Can you actually believe that they can beat Demolition?
You did ask that, and yes, my answer is that. Tito, I fucking love Tito. He's my friend on my Calavera Facebook, but Tito, the more I see him, especially as Strikeforce, especially, in the end, the more his claims of never taking steroids, the less I believe him. He was a big dude, and it's funny because one of the matches I watched that you didn't have me watch, that you probably didn't watch yourself, and it came on because I'd be falling asleep and then the next match would start. I think it came on after the Powers of Pain match, which was my least favorite of all of them, was the Rockers. And the Rockers, I wouldn't say were half the size of Tito and Martel. I bet you a lot of people probably think they were the same size. Tito,
they were smaller.
Tito's 6'6", 6'5", somewhere in there. Tito, I watched this match, and it crossed my mind because every time I've heard it was either going to be Brett in Canada or Tito in Mexico, whenever you hear that story, I looked and I thought Tito would have worked. I never thought Tito would have worked until I watched that match with Tito and Martel versus Demolition because Tito held his own. He was bigger than both of them as far as height. And he threw punches. And the other thing, I'm watching this match, and they're going toe-to-toe throwing punches, and I'm like, today's wrestling ain't got shit on this. Like, it looks real. Mm-hmm. Today's wrestling looks like they're all waiting. All right, you ready for this next spot? All right, let's do this spot. And
back in the 80s, they stiff you. Those punches are stiff, so you potato them.
They give and take. And these guys look literally. First of all, they're larger than life, all four of them. And second of all, they are laying into each other, and it looks real. Who cares if they're stomping their foot? Who cares? It looks real, and it's fun. I didn't know you were going to ask me this question, and you think I would because I had such an answer that I would have answered it in the first place. I don't know why I went the other way with your answer, but at the end of the day, yes, and that's what I think is good about it, because another match that you had me watch, I know it's out of order, but was the Bulldogs. In my head, the Bulldogs would have got their ass kicked by Demolition because they're way smaller. They aren't. When you watch it back, they're not. It's not like, in my head, in my memory, it's Rey Mysterio versus Scott Hall, but in reality, it's Brett versus Shawn. Brett's a little bit bigger than Shawn.
I give you that.
Shawn still can hold his own. And when we were watching stuff with Brett recently, and I'm like, I think the Royal Rumble, Brett was either in it or wrestled somebody. No, because we did a more recent Royal Rumble.
I think, wait, let me just say this, because you just said something that I agree with. And in the presentation of the 80s, tag team wrestling was at a premium at its Phoenix.
Yeah.
So every team was even the young stallions of Jim Powers and Paul Roma was somehow larger than life enough.
Yeah.
But they took an ass whipping from Demolition. But at least there was some semblance of believability that they can upset them. Not destroy them, but upset them.
The smallest of all those guys are probably the Killer Bees, and even they aren't that small. They're just
that is true.
Smaller, But to answer your question, not one match that you have me watch or that Rockers one that I feel like the other guy didn't have a chance. And that's what made it good, is because it wasn't just a squash. It wasn't just an ass whooping. And my probably favorite match is the last one that we'll talk about, because Demolition for once was selling. They didn't really sell too much in these other matches. They bumped.
Well, you know what, TW? Let's hold on, and let's now, since they beat Strikeforce and became the tag team champions after WrestleMania 4, of course, what do you do in 1988? Reflection Nights, you do the house shows. So, of course, Madison Square Garden, Strikeforce gets their rematch and, of course, comes up short. And sometimes Demolition would win the match by chicanery and cheating, and sometimes they would lose the match, but they would not lose the titles. They would lose by countouts, disqualifications, and draws. TW, those are some great, results right there. But we can't celebrate them. We can't use them because we got so many smart marks out there saying Demolition would look weak as fuck if they can never beat a team hands down legitimately. I don't know why this has skewed a lot of smart marks out there. But anyway, neither here nor there. But the second match during this first run of the tag team titles, TW, and I told you this in a DM, and I will tell this to the Reflection Nights out there. This was one of the most successful house show feuds because it wasn't really on Saturday Night's Main Event. Maybe once, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe once on Wrestling Challenge or Superstars Wrestling, but I can't recall it. But I know definitely it was a house show success. And it was July of 1988, July 25th of 1988, and I showed you a match from Madison Square Garden, TW, Demolition defending those tag team championships against the British Bulldogs, former WWF Tag Team Champions. And of course, if we're going to be honest, TW, this is Dynamite Kid. He is now knee-deep heavy into the steroids, into painkillers, because he never really took time off vehemently to, mend his wounds, so to speak. But you said it yourself, Davey Boy Smith, jacked up with the steroids, can go toe-to-toe against Axe and Smasher. TW, this match lasted for a long time here. So what say you about this particular house show tag team championship match from Madison Square Garden?
Blew me away how close in size Davey Boy was to both Demolition guys. Because to me, it felt like he got taller, because they always felt short. They look like midgets against Valentine and Beefcake. But Valentine and Beefcake are 6'7", 6'8", maybe 6'6". Demolition must just not have been that damn tall. They just were massive. And here's what got me. I'm like, am I watching this out of order? Because I was almost certain the description said champions were the Bulldogs. And I'm like, and so that's when I had texted you and said, Bulldogs fought Demolition as champions? But then it dawned on me, this is after WrestleMania 3, which is where...
4.
Okay, but it's still after 3 if it's after 4.
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania 3, Davey Boy had to carry Dynamite to the damn ring in that match, and that's why Tito's in the match against the Hart Foundation and then Danny Davis. I think Dynamite wrestled a little bit, but he didn't wrestle a ton because when he got hurt by Bob Orton hitting him with the chair with Orton and Morocco versus Bulldog.
No, it was taking a whiplash when he ran the ropes at a house show.
But he ran the ropes, and Bob Orton put a chair there. He hit the chair.
No, there's footage. He just ran and just.
Oh well, until you just said that, my whole life I heard the chair shattered vertebrae in his lower back, and that's why
you had your Mandela effect. But I have the proof. I can show you the proof. But go ahead, TW. Yeah.
But anyways, so I don't remember the Bulldogs even being there after WrestleMania 3. I thought they were done because somewhere in '88, the Bulldogs wrestled the Rock and Roll Express for some indie promotion in Vegas. It was
January '89. They fought the Rock and Roll Express
at the Showboat in Vegas or whatever for Herb or whatever the hell his name, Herb Brooks or
Herb Abrams, I think.
Herb Abrams, yeah. So for me, I didn't even know the Bulldogs were still around. So I'm watching them going. So maybe they were just mostly on house shows and not on TV anymore, and that's why I didn't know. But this blew me away because I'm like, that's like modern Bulldogs, not Alice Cooper Bulldogs.
They were very popular. They were very popular with the fans, and the fans were a little. I would say this, and I'm going with myself. I'm not speaking for any fans, but I was like, they should be like 2-time tag team champions, and they never got a chance. But they always fought against the tag team champions, whoever they were, the heel tag team champions.
And the Hart Foundation only got them because that's how the Road Warriors debuted and helped them win against Nasty Boys as baby faces. So they had a bad guy tag team run and a good guy one. But the fact that the Bulldogs, so remember I told you the Bulldogs aren't on my list because they weren't around long. They were 86, 87. I thought they were done. I had no idea they were still there in 88. None. I mean, were they in the Survivor Series, the second Survivor Series tag team?
Yes.
So they just must have been limited and weren't on. They probably chased the Hart Foundation until they switched to whoever they feuded with.
Their last feud in 88 was against the Rougeau brothers.
Right. The Bulldogs. That's who cost them this match. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it was. So that's how Demolition retained those tag team championships because technically Bulldogs could have been the tag team champions, but they were doing a storyline to progress the Bulldogs to a different tag team feud. So TW, again, in 2020 Deuce, we would say that the Demolition would look weak as tag team champions, but you and I are looking at this as great storytelling for protecting the Demolition and also progressing a new storyline. What say you? And then we'll get into another of a spotlight of the Demolition.
What am I saying about this match?
Yeah.
It was great. And it's almost the same match that they had with Strikeforce. The beginning, everything going down, and then rather than Fuji being the reason someone's distracted for the cane, it's the Rougeaus come out, and I think hit him with a cane. I think it hit Bulldog Davey Boy right.
I think it was a chair. It was a chair.
Yeah, and first thing I thought is this before or after the roll of coins? Just remember the roll of coins?
Mm-hmm. Well, this match was July of '88, so this was 1 month before SummerSlam, the first ever SummerSlam at Madison Square Garden. So that's where they were.
Do you know the roll of coins story?
With what?
Jacques and Dynamite.
Oh, in the locker room? I remember there's so many locker room stories between those two, so I've heard.
Bulldog Dynamite used to bully the Rougeaus. Like he not ribs, bully.
Yeah, and Jacques couldn't take it no more, so he had to roll the coins and knock the tar out of Dynamite Kid.
Broke teeth, yeah. And then they still had to work him, and Davey Boy told him, hey, man, Dynamite's on his own. Like, Davey Boy sided with the Rougeaus because He's like, I can't defend the shit he's doing.
Well, that's what happens when you're high on steroids.
And that's when he's gone. They weren't there much longer after that.
Yeah, they were gone in late '88. So TW, as they're progressing, as they're building their championship reign, of course, against they beat the Strike Forces, they beat the British Bulldogs, they beat the Hart Foundation in SummerSlam of '88. Now let's get into the one storyline. We've talked about this many times, and it was the switch. The switch in Survivor Series of 1988. Demolition, again, the fans are, and again, we have to talk about one thing about what makes Demolition, the chemistry, the aura, the character of Demolition work. Their theme song. You kind of alluded to it when we were doing our introduction. That riff of the guitar works. Here comes the axe. Here comes the smasher. I was at Madison Square Garden for SummerSlam '88. Demolition against the Hart Foundation. Hart Foundation got the cheers as a babyface, but when that song comes on, every fan stood up because we wanted to see the aura, the presence, the charismatic nature of Demolition coming down in all their garb, in all that Lord Humongous garb, and we were cheering for them. Like you said, you heard cheers when they beat the tar out of the Strike Force. Yep. We were cheering for them. So in Survivor Series of 1988, there was a new tag team on the scene, Reflectionites, and that was the Warlord and the Barbarian, a.k.a. the Powers of Pain. You could say Road Warrior ripoffs? Absolutely. So we ain't going to deny that. We already know that. TW and I already know that we saw them on WCW Saturday Night. We already know that they got embarrassed by the Road Warriors. So coming into WWF as good guys, okay, I can give it a chance.
I thought that was weird. That was weird.
It was totally weird, but I said, let's give it a chance. We know, I kind of understood where Vince, well, I can't say I knew that Vince was booking it, but I said, I kind of understood where WWF was going for this. They wanted to create their own Road Warrior wannabes, and they figured that the look was so close.
Spot on.
That was the word I was looking for. So spot on that they could actually create their own tag team champions as Road Warriors and pay them less, significantly less. So in Survivor Series of 1988, the switch happens. Demolition are the captains of this particular Survivor Series tag team match, the last great tag team survival match against who's the captains of the good guys? Oh, it was the Powers of Pain. They were the captains. So the switch happens, and Fuji cost Demolition, was the reason why the Demolition were eliminated. They slammed Fuji down to the ground, and they got a huge, you could say, Road Warrior pop. but Fuji was still on the mat while the Conquistadors were praying to the high heavens that they could actually win this survival match. The Powers of Pain go outside the ring. The referee was counting. If you really count it, they were on the floor for about 12 seconds. They should have been counted out, but of course the referees was like 1,001, 1,002.
Get back in your corner. Get back in your corner.
So it was funny, but then they were clean. They were dusting off Fuji. They were making sure that he was okay, and they took him to their corner, and they became the sole surviving tag team. Demolition came out, and now we get into the new feud. Demolition are now the good guys against the Powers of Pain, who became the bad guys. So now the formula of Master Fuji is not there for Demolition. So TW, let me ask you this. This is now a hindsight question. Did you fear that without Master Fuji, that Demolition would be less valuable on television or in presentation-wise?
I don't remember having those thoughts, but I do remember thinking they're not good guys. They don't look like good guys. And that's why, but funny enough, there's a shirt of me in another room where I'm wearing a Powers of Pain shirt from WWF. So obviously that shit worked on me. I'm 12 years old, 14 years old, rocking a Powers of Pain shirt. And I'll be honest with you, I think the reason why is because I wanted the Road Warriors in the WWF, and if I couldn't get them, at least I got these guys. Because But and just to go back and defend something real quick, they were Road Warrior ripoffs as part of a storyline. Paul Jones put them together to make a better, bigger, faster, stronger version of the Road Warriors. I don't know what their hair looked like before, because Barbarian was just a regular guy by himself, and then the Warlord shows up. But by the time they come here, they're a little more polished. I think they had better matching gear at that point in the WWF. But as far as Demolition, they were never a team that I thought needed Fuji, right? Okay. But it still was weird that they were baby faces. Because back then, baby faces looked like baby faces, heels looked like heels. And unless you were a cocky heel like Rick Rude. But he was somebody, and I think that's why someone like me liked heels like Rick Rude, Macho Man, and Mr. Perfect, is because they look like athlete stars. Like they look like they should be good, and then they were all cheaters and cocky bastards. But I just couldn't not cheer them. Whereas Axe and Smash were easy to boo because they looked like guys I wouldn't hang out with, right? So easy peasy, I'll boo them. So when they turned babyface, I think part of me was like, and those are the least effective babyface turns is when your manager turns on you. It almost makes the crowd pop for Fuji thinking he joined the Powers of Pain. And I think the crowd did. I think the crowd thought Fuji and the Powers of Pain were going to be good guys still, and Demolition got turned on. But the crowd was confused. Right. It was confused. And so to me, it's the closest thing to confusing the crowd the way they did with Luger, Tatanka, and DiBiase. It's almost exactly the same. The only difference is they fed you that Luger already joined them but just was denying it. This was just out of fucking nowhere because someone realized, all right, people actually like Demolition and they fuck this Powers of Pain shit's going south. Let's switch it. And they did. So it worked because they needed to do it. But I don't think Demolition lasted long as heels or as baby faces.
Well, technically they did, but we'll get it. I'll get it to that.
Is it the next year, the Road Warriors and Warrior versus
remember,
and Demolition?
They became baby faces November of '88 after Survivor Series, and it lasted until, if I want to be correct, June of 1990. So they had a good babyface run, so to speak. So let's get into this because now we
So the 1990 Survivor Series is Warrior and Road Warriors versus Perfect and Demolition? That's 90.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's get into the third match of this spotlight that I showed you. And this is the main event that was on NBC, the main event 2 or Deuce. This was the co-main event behind the Mega Powers and the Twin Towers. Demolition defending the Tag Team Championships against the Powers of Pain. So now, again, the dichotomy, TW, is they are now wrestling as the baby faces. Again, they were the aggressive bruisers, hammering you down, and they still kind of kept that formula as good guys. That's why I'm asking you this question. Not only does the chemistry of not having Master Fuji on their side messes with the matches, but again, the psychology, TW, that they have to switch like the Road Warriors did. They were heels once, and then again, they become the baby faces where you have to now you have to train your thought, TW, that you have to believe that they can be in pain, that they can be in trouble, that they
can sell.
That they can sell, TW. And TW, try to give that lesson to all the Reflectionites, the Magnificent Seven, how the Demolition had to switch it up, just like the Road Warriors had to switch it up, being monster heels and now being the baby faces, and make you believe that they were in trouble.
Well, it's easy. I mean, we talked about this before. Demolition can wrestle the same style. They just have to do it at a different time. They can start out beating the shit out of the guys and then get cut off. And then they can come back and beat the shit out of the guys, get cut off, and then do the hot tag and do whatever they got to do. They do got to pretty it up a little bit, but it's easy to sell. But the hard part is the mentality. So I've said this before. Me as a heel, what ended up getting me cheered was ripping on fans. Because if you and A-Track and Big Ray and Billy Ray and JB all go to a show together and I rip on you, all those guys are going to laugh at you because I just ripped on you, right? So it ends up making people like you. And so now I'm the good guy. I can't rip on you anymore because if I rip on you, everyone's not your buddy. So all the moms and babies and parents were like, this guy's mean, So it took me a month to figure out, maybe the same month. It took me a minute to figure out I got to do the same thing that made me get cheered, but I got to do it at someone else's expense. So everything that popped in my head, I would just yell at my opponent. Right. And then everybody liked me because I was ripping on the heel, or I'd rip on the referee. That was nice, cheap laughs, whereas the heel I get laughed at. So Demolition, all you have to do is get knocked off your feet and then struggle to get back up, and you're selling. And whether it's because someone tripped you or someone hit you with a fucking loaded boot, as long as you're selling like you're down, but you're not down for good, because you can't dead sell. If they dead sell, their whole mystique is done. They can't, like the Bulldogs could dead sell because everyone thought, fuck, these little motherfuckers. But then they did that second burst. Ricky Morton could dead sell. And what I mean by that is the shit where you raise their hand and drop it, and then the third one Hulk up. No one can Hulk up. That's Hulk's gimmick. But you know what I mean. You can do that and then, and give it another, rah, rah, rah. If those guys did that, it ruins their whole mystique because they're badasses. They're tough guys.
So while this match is basically a building block towards WrestleMania 5's 3-on-2 tag team title match, this ended in a disqualification, TW. So what say you about this match building for WrestleMania 5?
A, didn't know these two had another match at WrestleMania 5. B, it was easily my least. It was just, you said something earlier, and I started to say this, and I didn't finish my thought, where I said Travis would disagree with me. Rick Davies, a guy I wrestled with, his favorite wrestler ever is Mass Superstar. Mass Superstar was a good worker. And I'll say this, I still think Hulk Hogan's a great worker. He ain't the best wrestler, but he worked the crowd, and Axe works the crowd as Axe. I don't think Axe and Smash are putting on wrestling clinics. I think they're punch, kick, brawl, right?
So you give him like the 3 moves of doom kind of mentality.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Whereas from everything I've heard, I've never watched the Mass Superstar. I've seen Mass Superstar number 2, and he might be number 2. He might not be number 1. He might be Mass Superstar number 2. I don't know. But the point is, they're not doing arm locks, arm drags, drop kicks, and tackle drop downs and hip tosses. They're literally double axe handles and boots. But the thing is, the crowd ate the shit up. They ate it up when Hogan punched the guy 4 times and then whipped him to the ropes and gave him the boot to the face. That ain't no fucking small package, right? So they're more brawlers. They're more, what's my good man that died a couple years ago? Kimbo Slice. They're more of a Kimbo Slice, just stand and punch, nothing finesse. They're not dancing around like Muhammad Ali. And so the problem is they're good at it. Powers of Pain are not. So the Powers of Pain wrestling the same style.
Their dance partners were shitty. That's the problem. I get
but
you.
But they're both doing the same style, and one of them's good at it, and the other ones are green as fucking baby shit. So it just didn't work for me. It never did. Animal and Hawk versus Powers of Pain worked because they just brawled, and Animal and Hawk, they bumped them all over the fucking place, and they didn't do that with them. It was just and that's the thing. Animal and Hawk did drop kicks and power slams and suplexes. Axe Smash did none of that.
They didn't leave their feet. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
they did not leave their feet.
Nothing cute or fucking powerful. Just boots and axe handles. Just so it works when you're watching them beat up your favorites and you want your favorites to make a comeback. It's a heel style that's good for heels.
Okay, I give you that. But like I said, this was a building blocks match towards WrestleMania 5. This ended in a disqualification. Of course, they got their revenge or their payoff, in quote unquote, by defeating Master Fuji and Powers of Pain in a 3-on-2 tag team title match there. Now we get into the meat and the crust of Demolition's title reign. You could say they're already a year strong into their first reign. So now they are feuding with Bobby the Brain Heenan. they're feuding with the Heenan family. So now when you're feuding against Bobby Heenan and his army, this is a co-main event right underneath a Hulk Hogan and an Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship match, so to speak. So you got a triple main event style kind of thing. So now you got Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson and TW. You can see the difference in, I don't actually, you know what? Maybe I might choose my words carefully, TW, but what say you? Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson are experienced enough and have the psychology awareness enough to change their styles against the Road Warriors, knowing how bruisers there are, and they do the power slams and the drop kicks and all, and the high impact stuff. They actually I don't know, I want to say slow it down, but since, you know, Axe and Smash doesn't lead their feet with drop kicks, doesn't do like the power slams to death, doesn't go off the top ropes like Hawk does, they actually changed their style, and it still was a great kind of match. And the Brainbusters defeated the Demolition on Saturday night's main event, July of 1989, ending a year-plus run of their first run. But I showed you the match where they regained the Tag Team Championships for a second time in October of 1989, TW. So I just wanted to give you that chronology right there.
That's when Tully and Arn were on the way out.
Absolutely. So what say you about this match, even though it lasted for 10 minutes, but they regained their Tag Team Championships for a second time?
I always saw Arn Anderson look like an old man his whole life. He doesn't. He looks like a young Van Gogh in this here. But don't ever be surprised by the Brainbusters having a good match. They are the reason.
I'm not surprised.
No,
I'm just saying that
they changed their style, and it still was a good match. They did it because they're the Ric Flair tag teams. They could wrestle a broom, and it would be good. They could have wrestled the Powers of Pain, and it would be good because it's Tully's face. It's Arn's precision. It's Tully's cockiness. It's Arn's matter-of-factness. They just work like a well-oiled machine. If I didn't love Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty so much, the Brainbusters would be my all-time favorite tag team. They absolutely were just professionals, man. And it didn't matter who you put them in there with. I hate how it ended for them. I hated all that fucking loyalty to the Crockett's, especially if you could go back. I'll bet you $100 right now, if Arn and Tully could go back on hindsight, they would have never left WWF and went back to WCW. It ruined Tully's career because he failed the drug test. And then Arn...
Arn wanted to go... Well, you know...
he wanted to be with Flair. He wanted to be
with his family.
But
of course, being close to home.
Well, that's fine. But if you knew how it was going to all end, you would have just stayed in WWF. There's no... Proof in the pudding is... He worked for them as a damn agent for 20 damn years after he was done wrestling because Vince takes care of you when you're one of them, right? All these dudes getting released, they ain't shit. You know, maybe Mickey James, that's somebody with some years. Road Dogg, guys like that. That's the pettiness, behind the scenes politics shit. But most of these people getting released, they're people nobody gave a shit about anyway. Jake Atlas or whatever. And then you got people like, I like Keith Lee. But if you're a little whiner on the internet, why do I want to pay you money? Like, it's all, if you notice, it's all these people that get released are either A, they weren't doing shit anyway, or B, my spot, like this latest guy who you probably love, fuck this guy, Mustafa Ali. You don't go public and say, I want to do good things, but I can't do them here.
You really went totally left.
After the match, Tully and Arn leaving the WWF because Tully was done after that, man. He was done. He never did shit again. And now I got to see him as a frail old man on this fucking NXT light on fucking Wednesday nights, and it's miserable.
Oh God!
I can't even get a Tully.
Be happy he's getting paid. He's getting paid money. They're getting
my
paid
Facebook
money.
friend too. He's a religious man. I hope he still is. He doesn't post very often. But I can't even get a Tully and Arn figure in my Hall of Fame because these two assholes had to leave not once but twice. They had to leave to be. It's like, come on.
So what do you say? What do you say about the match, though? What do you say about the match?
I said, don't be surprised if Tully and Arn had a good match with anybody. It's a good match. I think they got the screw job finished. Didn't Axe just kind of lay on top of Arn to get the pin.
It was more about not a screw job. It was more about building the tension in the Heenan family between Tully Blanchard. Well, we didn't know that there was supposed to be tension between Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, and Bobby Heenan per se, but they were trying to build on that. There was dysfunction in the Heenan family. So, technically it kind of overshadowed Demolition's second time as tag team champions. But again, they got an opportunity to become two-time tag team champions, which again was a very rarefied air, so to speak. So they were they were on a class by themselves, becoming multiple-time tag team champions there. With the Hart Foundation, the Hart Foundation was a little bit later, but we'll talk about that in a second.
What about Beefcake and Valentine? Were they two?
No, just one.
Yeah,
but the history, let's say the feuding between Demolition and the Heenan family did not end there per se, because while the Brainbusters went back to Atlanta officially, another tag team came into the scene, and that was the Colossal Connection, and that was Andre the Giant and Haku, and they defeated Demolition in January of 1990. And of course, Demolition would once again become now the first time, three-time tag team champions in WWF or WWE history, winning those tag team titles against the Colossal Connection at WrestleMania 6 in Toronto Skydome. Now, the funny thing is here, as there were certain things going on in 1990, Reflection Nights and TW, and it was involving Axe. Now, Axe and Smash, they had a good rapport, I think, with Giant Baba and All Japan Pro Wrestling. So Demolition was allowed, thanks to Vince McMahon, to go to Japan and work those matches, because Demolition actually had wars with Giant Baba and Andre the Giant. I forget what that tag team was there, between Giant Baba and Andre the Giant respectively, but they had wars with Demolition. But that's neither here nor there, TW. I'm not talking about that match. I'm just
didn't even know that.
They did. But
as Demolition?
As Demolition. They were allowed to keep the garb and all that stuff. But while they were touring in Japan, Axe had an acute affliction towards shellfish. He was allergic to it. Either he didn't know it or he was served some food, but he had a bad reaction to it. So his conditioning started waning a little bit. So in that time, there was two things going on. They were trying to build their heel cred back, so to speak, on Wrestling Challenge and Superstars. They were being more aggressive against the jobbers. And of course, you see, Vince McMahon and Gorilla Monsoon were trying to sell. Why is Demolition being so, vicious again against these jobbers? And of course, we could talk about another thing that happens in the summer of 1990. And that was the signing finally of the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. So Demolition loses those tag team championships against the Hart Foundation. They would become two-time tag team champions, TW. But now, with the signing of the Road Warriors, and I am 13 years old at this time. You are 16 years old, I believe. We are knee-deep in the Bill Apter mags. We got a dream match scenario. We got the Demolition against the Road Warriors. Now, before we even talk about the last match that I wanted you to watch, as a fan, I was hyped for it. As a fan, this was not even, I didn't care about the tag team championships. That would have been a premium if Demolition was the tag team champions and let's say Survivor Series 1990, they were defending the titles against the Legion of Doom. I'm just saying that would have been an icing on the cake, so to speak. But I didn't care about the tag team championship. A dream match was right there in our grasp. But now, hindsight being 2020, TW, we learned that Vince McMahon said, I got what I finally wanted after all these years, and the guys that made me money just wasn't that valuable to me. So business-wise, I understand the logic of Vince McMahon's thinking, but it just, he didn't value that match. He didn't value that tag team match. Maybe, again, we already know Vince McMahon doesn't really care about the tag team division. What say you, TW?
You're not telling me what he did to make you feel that way, because I could have sworn the Hart Foundation beat the Nasty Boys to become tag team champions the second time because Animal and Hawk helped them with the helmet.
You got a concussion. No.
Jimmy, what's his helmet?
Trust
Who
me.
had the helmet?
Jimmy, but that's Nasty Boys beat the Hart Foundation at WrestleMania 7 to become tag team champions.
Right. But I'm talking about SummerSlam. Wasn't it Nasty Boys versus the Hart Foundation? And
I just told you while I'm doing my spiel. It was the Hart Foundation. Yes.
So Animal and Hawk cost Demolition the tag belts?
Yes.
I've always thought it was the Nasty Boys because they had that fucking helmet.
They were not in the WWF until 1991.
Whose helmet did they use to hit Smash and X?
What?
Animal and Hawk
keep
the helmet.
Keep with the program. Keep with the program. It wasn't no helmet. There was
WrestleMania. That's how they lost them. Was
yes,
the helmet.
Yes.
Oh, man, I'm fucking merging shit.
Yes, you are. I'm trying to keep with the program here.
So first of all, there's never going to be a tag team title match in 1990 because it's all Survivor Series teams at that point still. Mm-hmm. Second of all, we have the absolute greatest Survivor Series team in the history of Survivor Series teams and the second greatest team in the history of Survivor Series teams, not only on the same Survivor Series, in the same match. It's the Road Warriors, the Ultimate Warrior, and the Modern Day Warrior versus the Perfect Team, which is Mr. Perfect and 3 guys from Demolition. How would that not be called the Demolition Team? And I believe the captains are Kerry and Perfect because Kerry and Perfect were feuding over the Intercontinental title.
It was Ultimate Warrior and Perfect.
Because they were called the Ultimate Warriors, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Ultimate. But Perfect was feuding with the Warrior?
Yes, house shows and the main event.
But I thought that was the same year at SummerSlam that Kerry won.
Keep with the program with Demolition and Road Warriors, please. You are so
That's
great.
part of it.
No, it's not. Don't ask those questions. Don't ask the other questions about it. Just keep it with what I said. The preface. It was supposed to be a dream match.
I'm asking you what you're saying that Vince did. That like he never had the big payoff match. Is that what you're saying?
It never did. And even the match I gave you to watch, which was LOD and Ultimate Warrior against Axe, Smash, and we could talk about Crush here if we want, in 1990, because of Axe's afflictions to the shellfish allergies that he was suffering, they had to find a substitute. And that's where Brian Adams, a.k.a. Crush, comes into 1990. The dream match was not a priority for Vince McMahon because he did not give the fans what they want. He did not give the fans a good payoff match, no matter.
I will say this, though. By 1990, especially Bill Eadie, they're long in the tooth, dude. It's not like they're young. They actually look pretty small in this match. Like, both of them had gotten smaller. Mm-hmm. I think I had a hard time getting which one was Smash and which one was Crush. Not with HD. HD, I know which one's which. But when it's YouTube and it's shoddy footage, because I think Axe took the finish. There is one spot in this match that Gorilla absolutely saved the day. The Warrior went to do the Warrior splash to Axe, and Axe moved, but Warrior was going to miss him anyway. Mm-hmm. And Gorilla said, "Man, the Warrior's running around all that pomp and circumstance. Axe didn't even have to move. He was going to overshoot him anyway." And I thought, that's awesome because it's true. It's what happened. But it's funny that they took the heat on the Warrior, and then they took it on, I think, on Animal, and Hawk got the hot tag after that. But this is the match I was talking about, and it makes sense with everything you're saying, other than Crush, who's still there. Axe and Smash, they're almost phoning it in here, and it's a house show, right?
Yes.
It's a house show, but they're giving the Warrior nothing. Everything he tries to do, they're stopping him. Warrior gets pissed. He's outside the ring, grabs Smash and Crush by their hair. Like, I'm going to fucking ram your heads together. And then all 3 of them, Axe reached in there. Then they put him on the rope with the Sheamus spot. Mm-hmm. And they just were giving him nothing. And I thought, I wonder if the Warrior just never stuck up for himself in the locker room. Because I'm going to tell you right now, yeah, I wouldn't fight Animal and Hawk. But I wouldn't have fought the Ultimate Warrior either. So, I don't know.
Ultimate Warrior was a loner, and it was, you could say, a shark in politics, you could say. He was about himself and the money.
Right, but what I'm saying is these guys always took liberties on him. Andre the Giant took liberties on him. Like, you hear the stories. he would run and do how he crossed over you twice before doing the splash? Every night, every house show, Andre the Giant would put his fist up and hit him in the dick as he was jumping over him on one of those runs.
Right.
And it's at some point, why wouldn't you say, listen, motherfucker, you do that one more time, I'm fucking swinging back. I don't give a fuck if he is Andre the Giant. He's a fucking 108 years old and he fucking barely can move. Fuck it, I'll run from him the rest of my fucking life. But when I finally fucking snap, I'm snapping on his ass. And but if you watch this match, they just take liberties on the Warrior the whole time. Then Animal and Hawk come in there and just beat the shit out of those guys. And there was a point where Gorilla says, man, if Animal and Hawk don't get in here now, it's over for the Warrior. And they came in, and it was one of the worst hot tags in the history of hot tags when the Warrior tagged in Animal. He kind of just rolled over and kept doing this. Baby Kong, baby Donkey Kong, baby Donkey. And then he rolled over and tagged him. And it was just, but this was my favorite match because it was cool to watch stuff where and like I said, now that you've told me all that, they're on their way out. And so they're probably not happy at this point. And I was going to ask you, ironically, because Smash side-eyed Crush a couple times where I thought, I wonder if either one of these guys are thinking, whose fucking job is this guy taking? Is he taking mine? Or is he? But now I remember all the shellfish stuff now in hindsight. It was clearly going to be Axe's job to lose, and it would be Crush and Smash. And I think it was that for a little bit before Smash became Repo Man.
Well, Axe was supposed to be the manager, you could say, but they were trying to build themselves. No, but I'm trying to explain it storyline-wise. They were trying to do the Freebird thing. Right. Which two were going to defend the titles? Which two were you going to face? Right. Again, the mystique of this dream match was the match sucked. I don't care. This feud sucked. Even Axe and Smash and kayfabe commentary said their feud with the Road Warriors sucked in their eyes because Vince McMahon left money on the table in their humble opinions. And I actually agree with them because it just didn't matter. Even this house show match in Madison Square Garden, the fans were hyped for it because you added the Ultimate Warrior element of it. But in hindsight, and he's champ. But when you look at this match, TW, I thought it was the worst match. It was the worst match out of everything.
Oh, it's terrible as far as science. Yeah, it's not good. But I said it was my favorite to watch because A, I didn't know what happened, and B, I loved watching the Warrior stick up for himself. But I just can't help but think, did he not defend himself in locker rooms? Because you'd see
he didn't have to. He had Vince McMahon in his back pocket.
But Rick Rude took liberties with him. There was people that said Rick Rude knocked him out for real in the locker room, like punched him in the mouth and knocked him out. And I think that might have been the start of it where people just didn't take him serious, no more like jail. Like, you ain't going to come back and whoop his ass for that? And like I said, Mike Tyson said it best. We all got a game plan until we get hit in the face, man. If I got knocked out, I wouldn't be looking to fucking take another punch. Guy was a world champion arm wrestler. I wouldn't be looking to get socked in the jaw again by him. But I'd have got it back. They would have absolutely. There ain't no way I'm laying down.
Absolutely. So in closing, in this 4-year run, after the Road Warriors are there, and Vince McMahon prioritizes the Road Warriors to be his A tag team, no matter if they were heels or baby faces, you could see where the priorities were there. And of course, in 1991, the tag team division, I'm not going to say it started waning a little bit. Even though you had the Nasty Boys and even though you had the Natural Disasters, it just didn't feel the same way like in the glory days.
Rhythm and Blues.
Well, the Rhythm and Blues were decent enough, but it just didn't feel the same way as the 80s did. So when you get into a new decade.
By then it was more cartoonish anyway, by then. Even though they claimed the 80s as a circus, 80s had some great tag team matches.
Right, but what I mean is that Demolition was not on Vince McMahon's high priority list in 1991, and it showed in WrestleMania 7 where they got squashed. These were 3-time tag team champions, and they got squashed by All Japan wrestlers Tenryu and Katao in 35 seconds, TW. So that was the writing was on the wall for Demolition's run in WWF. So
who were the two in the match?
I just said Tenryu and Katao.
No, Smash and Axe or Smash and Crush.
Smash and Crush.
Wow.
So that's why they lost in 35 seconds. So they disbanded kind of quietly. Crush did his thing. He would repackage himself in 1992 as Kona Crush, and of course Smash finished his contractual obligations as Smash in singles competition. Axe went away from the WWF, to mend his, shellfish afflictions, you could say. And again, Demolition was no more. As you said, Smash would become the Repo Man in 1992. So in closing, TW, for Demolition, why are they not in the Hall of Fame, Reflectionites? Because there's copyright issues between Axe, Smash, and Vince McMahon. Of course, Vince McMahon can be, vindictive when it comes to IP trademarks. At one time, Axe was using his indie name in the late 90s was Axis the Demolisher. And Vince McMahon said, no way in hell are you using that name, because that is so close to the IP trademarks of Acts of Demolition. And Axe and Smash have filed lawsuits and litigation against the World Wrestling Federation or World Wrestling Entertainment and have lost numerous times. So there will be no way in hell that Demolition will get a spot in the WWE Hall of Fame, TW, and I think that's a crying shame. Sometimes you got to separate the pettiness of litigation with what should be the obvious, that Demolition belongs in the WWE Hall of Fame. Of course, they're already in like Pro Wrestling Illustrated Hall of Fames. They're in Indie Hall of Fame. So, they are recognized in other Hall of Fames for their accomplishments as Demolition. What say you in closing about that?
I always thought Axe was one of the guys with the lawsuit for the injury, concussions or whatever. But you're not getting into the Hall of Fame of the person you're suing. You're not. It's just not happening. So,
I know the reality. I understand the reality of that. I'm just saying it's a crying shame that they should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, and they should have fucking action figures on my wall. They shouldn't be so expensive to get them, because Jax did the Legends deal, so they dealt with them directly because Vince let them deal with retired wrestlers and had private contracts. With these Mattels, they don't do that unless you have a Legends contract. Then you get a figure made. So Vince must be like, fuck that. We're not making no Owen figures. We're not making no Demolition. I blame Owen's wife for him not being in it. Macho Man's in it finally, right? Lanny Poffo did the intro.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck happened there, but as far as Demolition, they absolutely should be in there. They're the first ever 3-time tag champions. They fucking they outdid the mileage on a gimmick that really was just a holdover until you could get the Road Warriors, and he proved it because 4 years later when he got them, fuck you guys. So it's even more blatant that they were just created as fucking to suffice him because he couldn't get the real thing. And they far, far, far exceeded being Road Warrior fill-ins or copies or whatever. But, again, and it's not that I don't side with the wrestlers. I do, man. I do. But when you have stories of Owen Hart and Mick Foley saving every penny they have, and then you have stories of guys like Ric Flair who's fucking broke, who has no fucking business being broke, by the way. But this dude's about to get his 5th divorce. If you fuck up your money, that's on you. And at some point, I have to believe Demolition made a lot of money. And for them to do what they're doing now means they don't have any of it. And so for me...
What do you mean, like doing the wrestling cons and autograph sessions?
No. What I'm saying is that 4 years where maybe they didn't get paid much in the beginning, but at some point, they got paid, right? And then if they didn't save that money, that's on them. These guys, like Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, are broke, right?
Yeah.
God bless them. They didn't make money in 1984 like dudes made in 1994, right? Like, it's just, you got paid, but you didn't get paid. Like, Ric Flair invested in himself. He spent every penny he made on a new robe, on a new Rolex, on a new whatever, and eventually that dude just made money, right? But what I'm saying is a lot of these lawsuits are from people who didn't save their money. And it's for me, if they own the fucking copyright, they own the copyright. You don't see fucking, he's dead, but you don't see Owen Hart running around saying, fuck you, I should be able to sign autographs as the Blue Blazer. Like, he who cares if that's his character? Now, should he let him be able to make money, like, on the side? Yeah, it is petty on Vince's. But my point is, if they're not suing him, he probably lets him do it already. But because he had to have the battery knocked off his shoulder, he's showing him who's laughing last. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't agree with either side one way. I think it's petty to sue. I think it's petty to not let them use their gimmick that they're known for. But at the same time, I don't know Vince McMahon personally, but I know the buttons you don't push are the buttons that dares him to fucking hold out longer, because he's gonna win. You know, he held out for the Warrior. Is there a fucking better, more heartfelt moment than Vince McMahon and the Ultimate Warrior in that WrestleMania backstage hugging, where he gives him the fucking little engine that could book? Like, you could tell those two loved each other. So you know that 10 years that they didn't talk probably killed both of them. But guess who had to fucking come around? The Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior. And it's Triple H gets credit for it. But you know what? That's your fuck there. There's your out. Fuck it, Vince. All right, let's do it because he called them in. But if you have a feud with Vince McMahon and you're losing. You're going to lose it.
John Laurinaitis is not going to call Demolition and try to patch things up between themselves and Vince McMahon. So that,
neither is Triple H.
With that being said, Reflectionites, we close on this Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and we hope you enjoyed this particular spotlight with Axe and Smash of Demolition. So TW, we've been talking so long. Give out those socials so we can get out of here.
Alrighty. Pro Wrestling Coalition Network is PWC Network at podbean.com. Ours is at PW Reflection on the Twitters. The P1JB is JB on Twitter. I really thought he was going to be here for this one. Big Ray, can't do it without him, at Big Ray Hernandez. My one that, I don't do this much political, but I do still, at Tommy Wonder 19 or at the Tommy Wonder to talk about wrestling and pop culture. Snapchat's Number Wonder, Facebook.com/Tommy Wonder, Dum Dum Duo and an Idiot is the YouTube channel. We ain't done shit in a while, but we're doing something soon. And then, of course, Big Vito Brand at bigvitobrand.wixsite.com and patreon.com/the Big Vito Brand.
And sometimes you can hear us on the Hami Media Group, so check us out there on Sundays on the Hami Media Group. So check out their Podbeams and Facebook fan pages respectively. And you can find me on the Twitter at PWHustle PROF. That's PWHustle Prof. And of course, follow my brothers in arms, 8-Track Brown, the king of the reactions at 8-Track Dashley. And of course, the man with documents, Mr. Infinite Fringe himself, Billy Ray Valentine at Obi-Wan You Know Me. What are we going to do next week, TW? I don't know. We might go episodic. We might do the movies. We might do rivalries.
We might be shoveling ourselves out of snow still next week. It's brutal.
Of course. Well, I don't know. Well, we'll do a special snow edition of the PWR podcast here at the PWR Network at podbean.com.
Let's do a spotlight on wrestlers that died from cocaine. Gino Hernandez. Let's do that.
Oh, geez.
Oh, you said snow. I thought you meant snow.
Oh, okay.
Al Snow.
Nah, even Mick Foley would make fun of me doing a spotlight of Al Snow. But anyway, I'm the professor. That's Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Iron Stomach 1, TW saying good night, and we will see you next time here at the PWHustle Networks at podbean.com and the Pro Wrestling Reflection Podcast. See you next time, Magnificent 7.
What a rush. Wrong team.
Yeah, you got it wrong.